Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ship Nuggets. Really excited to join you today. Before I go into what I want to talk about today, I want to just invite you to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. The Ship Nuggets channel, we talk about 7 ships that we all need to take us from where we are to where we need to be. We talk about leadership, followership, relationship, stewardship, discipleship, entrepreneurship, and worship. And I believe that as you engage in one of these ships or any of these ships, your life will not be the same. So if you want to get videos from us, just hit the notification button and you will get a video, get the videos when they drop. Okay, so I want to talk about how leadership, followership, or the leadership, followership, and worship connection when it comes to the area or the aspect of selecting a leader. As you know, in a couple of days, the United States will be electing or will be going to vote for a potentially new president of the United States, and basically in an environment where there's no corruption, in a free democratic society, the elections or voting is basically a way for the citizens to give feedback regarding the performance of their leaders. So November 3rd, Americans are going to go to the polls to decide whether the current administration should stay or whether the current administration should be kicked out, for lack of a better word. So this began to make me think about just the whole process here of selecting leadership when it comes to voting. And one thing that I kind of surmised from this is that every elected leader, now again, assuming that the environment is free of corruption, free of rigging and all that stuff, every elected official is really a reflection or really reflects the values of the followers or the citizens that voted them in. And this is very, very interesting and true because it ties in with a concept called mirroring, where followers project different perceptions of values of what they desire their leaders to be or to have. So basically, people who vote go into the ballot, go into the voting booth, and they cast their vote for people that they basically identify with, or people that they feel share common values or share common kind of understanding in terms of ideology with them. So if we say that, if we all agree that basically everyone cast their votes based on this perceived alignment of values, then it makes me to see that the election process or the process of selecting a leader is just as important to the follower than it is also to the leader, because the finger, instead of it just pointing alone at just examining the leader, it also points to the character and to the values of the followers. So this made me wonder, like, okay, so we need to really examine the state of followers, what they're thinking, how they are, who they are within this space of politics. And so the idea of selecting a leader, like I said, in as much as it is a way of getting feedback on the performance of a leader, it's also a way for us followers, for us citizens, to evaluate who we are. Because as the leaders that we present, or the leaders that we elect, or the leaders that we appoint, basically, intrinsically, covertly, if you will, reflect our own values as individuals. And to throw more light on that, there's a very, very good book by Barbara Kellerman. It's called Followership: How Followers Are Changing, How Followers Are Creating Change and Changing Leaders, by Barbara Kellerman. And Barbara Kellerman talks about the different types of followers within a political process or a political environment. And she says that a political environment, in a political society, in a political environment, followers are categorized based on their level of engagement. So the first example is the isolate. So the isolate has zero level of engagement. They don't know who the leaders are, they don't know who the judges are, they don't know who the president, they're not involved, they're not engaged, they're isolated from the process. And this may be because of so many reasons, but they're isolated. The next level of engagement or followership group are the bystanders. Bystanders know who the leaders are, they know who is in power, so to speak, but they just choose not to be engaged. They choose not to be involved. So they are literally bystanders. And Kellerman observed that the more bystanders we have within a political space, the more likely the country or the citizens are going to elect a bad leader. When you sit down and fold your hands and say, you know what, let them do what they want to do, you run the risk of allowing people whose values don't necessarily align with good to elect somebody that is bad. And I have to admit, I fell into that category of it being a bystander, the watch and see type of person. The next level are the participants. The participants are vested, they put their money where their mouth is, they go in and they're part of the process, but they're not necessarily change agents, right? They just participate, and that's all they do. And from there, you have the activists. Now, activists are invested, they participate, but they are also change agents. And Kellerman observes that activists can be a double-edged sword. They could be good when they are with you and terrible when they are against you. And you know, like in even now within the political parties in the United States, the Democrats and the Republicans, they all have activists that go out there and champion their causes. They're change agents for good or bad, depending on the situation. And then the next level, you have your diehards. These are people that are willing to die for the cause. They are willing to die for the cause, and then they are diehards. So the question now is, where do we fall in that spectrum? Are you an isolate? Are you a bystander? Are you a participant? Are you an activist? Are you a diehard? Where do you fall in that group? That would give you an idea of where you stand. But another dimension to this whole, this spectrum is the dimension of worship. So knowing who you are within the spectrum of politics will help you know what type of engagement you are going to have. But knowing the type of values that you have is linked to this aspect of worship. And all I just want to simply say is, we should not only in this process just look at the leader, look at the leader's personality or look at the leader's policies. Some people say, I'm going to vote based on the personality of the leader, or some other people say, I'm going to vote based on the policies of the leader. The other aspect that I want us to consider is this aspect of worship. Because when we engage worship, what worship does is that it creates an atmosphere for us to hear what God has to say, and it creates an atmosphere for God to project His values upon us, so that we can now use that as a template to analyze the policies and the personalities of the leaders. I'm reminded of scriptures when Samuel went to select David to be king. Samuel went over there and he began to look at the physical attributes of David's brothers. And in fact, he had one picked already. And he said, this is the guy. And God told him, no, that's not the king. I've rejected him. The reason why we need to add the component of worship is because even though we may see and we may make our conclusions from the physical, God sees the heart. God knows the heart. God knows everybody's heart. God knows where people stand. God knows the truth. And as we build and develop relationship with Him, we will get to a point where we know exactly the heart of God, the mind of God concerning a candidate, concerning a leader. Now, the issue here is this, that some people may say, well, what are you trying to say? I mean, God knows the heart, but hey, I need to know, I'm not picking based on that. Hey, listen, I'm not saying don't evaluate the personality. I'm not saying don't evaluate the policies of the person, of the would-be leader. I am simply saying that we must not evaluate based on that track alone. We must also examine who we are as individuals, what part of the political spectrum do we fall in terms of followership, and then we need to also include the aspect of worship, the aspect of involving God in the process. And the reality is that we're not going to always get it right, because we're human and we make mistakes. We need to grow in this process. We need to grow in our walk with God, grow in our worship with God, to the point to where we are very confident about the information we're receiving from there, to where we are able to make decisions. We need to grow in our understanding of the policies of the people, understandings of the personalities of the people, as well as grow in our walk with God in worship, to where it informs our overall understanding. So, in conclusion, what I'm just simply saying is, let's not choose in isolation. Let's evaluate worship, let's evaluate followership, and let's do this within the environment of worship. And when we do this, I believe that we'll be able to be satisfied with the results of our choices. We'll be able to do it in peace, without any kind of confliction, without any kind of conflict, without any kind of struggle. We'll be able to do it in peace. And one thing I want to say again as I wrap up is that, listen, regardless of who wins, let us make up our mind to be agents of change, to be problem solvers, to be solutions and not problems. I pray that as you engage in this process over time, that God will grant you wisdom. I pray for peace over the United States, and I pray that we'll have a great time, even after the election, and that, everything that you have desired will come to fruition. So, till we see again, let's keep sailing to the top.